Well, I thought it was time to address something that I've kind of ignored here on my channel, and that's my pedal board. I absolutely love this board, but I have to admit that I'm not really using it the way that I intended. You can see because of this big OctaSwitch switcher here, I was trying to avoid the pedal dance, but like I said, I'm more of a studio player, so it's just a nice big accessory here now. Still comes in handy. But I've got pedals of different vintages here, at least my own vintage, and some of my earliest pedals here, and then a collection of pedals that I've sort of gathered along the way and some newer ones. But when I wired this thing, which is kind of a complex wiring because of the switcher, I was kind of using cables that I had on hand. Some of these colorful, ugly cables here have been with me for a number of decades, I think. And then I did get a pedal cable kit for some of them, but it's a bit of a hot mess. So because this is a studio board, I need this board to be quiet, and having cables that just aren't cutting it could be problematic. Plus these old cables just take up a lot of room, and I just don't have a lot of space left on this board. So I've got something that's going to solve two problems, and by coincidence I recently connected with the Rockstock Pedal Company, and they've got these awesome patch cables for your board. They got a thin profile, they're high quality, and I think they're going to solve a couple of issues. So I thought I'd start rewiring this board, talk about the board itself, and while I'm here I thought I would jump into the old pedal order debate. Why not? We're here. I'm the Lonely Rocker. This is I Don't Have a Band, and welcome to my pedal board here in my home studio. All right, let's just dive right into this. Really excited to be revisiting my board here, doing a little cleanup. I've been wanting to do that for a while. I'm going to talk about a few things here. Number one, three things. The three main components of building a good pedal board. Aside from the pedals themselves, you've got a pedal order to consider. Like I said, I'm going to put the final nail in the coffin of that discussion. Stay tuned for that. So pedal order, the wiring, which is going to be a particular feature for today. We're going to talk about these cables. And power. Power is really important. You want to minimize noise and just make sure your pedals are running well. Now, in terms of pedal order, I'm going to save that one for a little bit later. I'm going to make you wait. But cabling. Cabling is really, really important. Now, one mistake I actually made on this board, obviously I've spent a bit of money assembling these pedals. They did collect over time, is that I did buy a pedal cable kit. I needed some custom lengths because I do have a custom run. I'm going to talk about this switcher in a second. But I used a lot of cables that I had on hand, like these ugly, colorful ones here. I might have bought a couple of them. So I never really paid close attention to the wiring, and I'm sure these are not shielded properly, and I'm getting some noise. So I definitely want to clean that up. And obviously I've got a lot of different requirements in terms of length here. So I was just using whatever I had. So I need to give a little more thought to that. Talking about the wiring, Rockstock Pedal Company reached out to me coincidentally, and they've got these new cables that they're just about to release. So they sent me over some to take a look. And these are really, really cool because coincidentally, one of the problems I had was real estate. These patch cables here, the heads on them are so big, and I've sort of had to stagger the pedals just to get them all to fit together. But look at this, flat cables, and look how small the heads are on these things, about a third of the size of what I've got here now. There's a good gold connectors here, well constructed cables, really, really nice, and I just love the small form factor. Even on a big board like this, you want to save as much space as you can. So we're going to clean that up a little bit. One thing I'm going to say, guys, is go out and buy these things when they come out because number one, they're really great. Number two, I want them to make 12-inch cables. I need some longer ones for here, but for a standard pedal board, these are going to do the job for almost all cases if you're just lining up your pedals on a smaller board. So that's the wiring. Now power. Power is something really important to consider when putting a pedal board together, because if you're just using a wall wart and your daisy chaining, pedals have different requirements. Like this Line 6 DL6 is an 18 volt, has an 18 volt requirement, and then some average pedals or typical pedals are 9 volt. So they're all a bit different. So I actually have a power brick. It's mounted underneath the board here, and it can distribute nice clean power at the voltage that each pedal requires. So that means they're all getting the power that they need. So they're running at their optimal level, and that's just going to make sure they sound good and you're not going to get a lot of noise. So that's something I actually did pretty good here. This big red thing here, this is the OctaSwitch. This is the OctaSwitch 2. perhaps an earlier version. I bought this, I don't know, 7 years ago or so. Anyways, this is great because if you're tired of doing the pedal dance, this is a great way to program your pedals, because if you look here, there's all these little dip switches. You've got 8 channels, so you plug all the pedals you want to be controlled by the switcher, and then you can assign them to each patch here, each channel, just by changing the dip switches. So you've got 8 dip switches. So for example, let's say the OCD is on 1, and let's say this coarse pedal is on 5, then you just turn on the dip switches 1 and 5, and as long as all these pedals are on, you just hit that switch and you're just going to get these 2 in the signal chain. So you can go through and program all of these channels with different combinations of pedals. And what I tend to do is I split it in half. I've got my dirty channels on one side, clean on the other side. And the other cool thing that it does, actually, it can switch your amp. It's got a 2-channel switch here, so you can assign a channel to each one of these. So let's say these 4 I've set to the B channel on my Marshall, so that will turn on the dirty channel, and then the other 4, the A channel. So it can switch your amp and switch combination of pedals at the very same time. So that's super, super awesome. And the last thing to consider when putting a board together is pedal order. This has been argued since the day pedals were invented. There's some stubborn people out there who think there's only one way to do it. And I'm going to tell you, there's only really one way to think about it. The pedal order is going to be determined by the type of tone you're going after. Now, there's conventional thinking where you're going to use sort of your tone shaping pedals first in the chains. Then I'll sort of get into my modulation pedals, like the chorus and the tremolo here. And then lastly, my preference actually is to put the delay through the loop, but that would be last in the chain. Now, if you want to go for sort of a AC/DC kind of tone, well, you definitely want to put your overdrives before your delay and your reverbs and things like that. 100%. Can't argue that point. But if you're looking to shape some interesting sounds where perhaps you want to push and create some movement with the overdrive, you could absolutely put a delay in front of an overdrive and come up with some really interesting sounds. Like I said, the order is really going to depend on the type of tone that you're trying to get. And you can't tell someone that it's wrong when, in fact, that's what they're trying to do. So while there is conventional thinking, it's kind of your hamburger, your meat of tone, and then you want to color your tone, that's conventional thinking. But you know what? The truth is there's no real order. If you get a sound that you really like, you know what, then that's the order that's going to work for you. So I think that's the last time we ever need to argue this point. So I'm going to get to wiring this now. Let me go in. I'm going to pull out all the old cables and see how many of these I can get on the board. And let's see how that looks. All right, so I hope this is not anticlimactic. I wasn't able to recable everything here, but take a look at this. This is the reason why I love these flat cables. The OCD and the MXR were like this before. They were staggered. I wanted to line them up nicely. Look at that. They fit like a glove. Amazing. I just couldn't make the run here. These were it was too long. I couldn't get from here to here and from here to here, but the OCD I was able to patch it in because it's right here. The coarse pedal patched in here with the new Rockstock flat patch cables. Just look how nicely they curve. Before, with these other cables, I'm running them under the board and sometimes wrapping them around. If I wanted to make any adjustments, it's a real pain. I could just stay on top, and they're very unassuming, very thin cables, but they're good quality. They're not like too thin, but they curve really nicely. I'm not tying any of them down. Flow really, really nicely. Like I said, if you had just sort of a standard daisy chain pedal board, these are going to be exceptional. You can get your pedals nice and close together. While I'm here, I thought I'd sort of give you an overview of how this board is actually working. I figured, I think there's only so much we can say about cables. They're great cables. Rockstock, please, 12-inch, think about it. So I've got 3 sections of my board here. I've got what I call the input section, the pedals that are controlled by the octa switch, and then the output section. So here on the front end, I've got a small daisy chain of pedals here that are actually not running through the octa switch. It starts off with the tuner, goes into the Joe Bonamassa wah, which from there goes into, I did use this. I have a Rockstock cable here that's going into the pitchfork. Pitchfork is like an octave kind of thing, but you've got different intervals. And from that, we're going into the MXR phase 90, and that goes into the input. So the sort of the middle section here of all these pedals that are controlled by the octa switch, we've got the Big Muff, the OCD, and the pork loin. Those are sort of my three sort of overdrive and fuzz as well. And then we've got some modulation here with the Super tremolo pedal, and this vintage 80s vintage chorus, the bi-chorus from Ibanez. I used to have the delay, the DL6 here from Line 6, but I do like my delay running through the loop on my amp. And the truth is, I don't record with delay on. In fact, I generally don't even record with modulation. Maybe some rare cases. I generally like just to get my tone shaping done and then do all my coloring in the box. But again, there are some exceptions if I want to do kind of a live thing. And then on the output section, I've got this 2B booster, which sometimes actually I disengage all of the pedals and I'm just going boost to drive the amp. Sometimes I want to take the whole kit and caboodle and give it all a big boost. That's why I've got it on the end, but I have that option. And then at the end of the chain, I've got a ditto looper here if I just want to jam with myself, and basically takes the whole signal that's created with the pedal board, and I can record those with the ditto looper. And this is an expression pedal that actually works with the DL6. Admittedly not using it that much these days. So really there's the layout of the pedal board. These rock stock flat patch cables are really great. I'm hoping that they'll consider longer ones and we can get this board finished up. This is just so much better, and really pleased with that. But if a standard pedal board is what you got, these are exceptional cables. Going to give you a nice clean result. I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to get more information and perhaps grab some for yourself. Well, if you're new to the channel, I hope I've earned a subscribe. I've got a ton of content on this channel, a lot of it revolving around this home studio, geared to the home studio enthusiast and the home recording musician, with videos to hopefully help make your home studio life better. So perhaps you'll click that subscribe button and come along for the ride. If you really want to support this channel, I am on Patreon. Links to everything I've discussed and some things I haven't are in the description below. And above all else, hope I'll see you again in another video. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And please like, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay up to date. Remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. There are a lot of great musical projects you can do by yourself, right from your own home. I hope to see you again next time.